Rick and Morty's Season 3 has ended, and 4 episodes earlier than Dan Harmon said it would. Is he telling the truth and he just isn't able to do 14? Is he so angry at the backlash of the female writers that he is punishing his fanbase? Or could he just be lying to us? Let's take a look.
We should talk to him. Yeah, that sounds fun. With a spoiled control freak that thinks he runs the world and
cut seasons short
to cope with his insecurity.
I wouldn't put it above Justin and Dan to do another fake out. I honestly believe this wasn't the season finale. Maybe I like to think that because I didn't feel like it was enough, but here's my evidence to support this theory. This wouldn't be the first time they pulled something like this. Season 3, Episode 1 aired months in advance on April 1st, 2017, remember? Dan Harmon said on Film Theory that we would be seeing Evil Morty in the finale.
By the way, can we talk Evil Morty?
Just wait until the end of the season.
The season was ordered for more episodes originally, I believe 14, but ended up being 10. Mr. Poopy Butthole said we might see him again, maybe with a white Santa beard.
I might even have a big white Santa Claus beard.
And while this could be interpreted as just a cliche, this took so long I grew a beard, I personally think it could be a nod that we might be getting the rest of the season, or a real finale, sometime around Christmas. Hopefully this is the case, as if they are just hinting at a Christmas 2018 release, then it would fit around the 18-month timeline we have known Rick and Morty seasons to take. One of the reasons Season 3 took so long was because they said they wanted to get it perfect. I personally believe Justin and Dan know their fan base pretty well, and wouldn't take such a major risk as to not show Evil Morty or Phoenix Person in the finale, especially after stating Evil Morty would be in it and tying something bigger up in the Ricklantis episode. Only time will tell. Okay, potential spoilers for Season 4 ahead. Proceed with caution. We've probably all heard the theory that Evil Morty is Rick's original Morty, so the assumption is that our current Morty is from another dimension. I do not believe this to be the case. Rather, I believe him to be a clone of the original. Why? Well, let's take a look at a couple key episodes in Season 3. The ABCs of Beth. I bring this first episode to attention because it showcases one of Rick's more ambiguous abilities. Cloning. Not just to make a clone body, but to make a fully sentient being, indistinguishable from the original, even believing itself is the original. This alone doesn't even in the least prove our Morty is a clone, so why is this important? First, between this episode and the season finale, it carried over between the two, showing that this is more than just a one-off. Beth feared that she was a clone and therefore subject to death by Rick if she discovered this supposed truth. This minor plotline seemingly resolved itself at the end of the episode, but as we have all seen, many aspects of the show hold much deeper meaning than they appear. The second episode I call to attention is this, Morty's Mind Blowers. We all loved this new take on interdimensional cable, where we discovered Rick's ability to remove some of Morty's more damning memories. This is another key episode demonstrating a newly seen talent of Rick's. When Morty sees something he shouldn't, or gets one over on Rick, the memory can be removed at the press of a button. However, what if his memory removal had played a more sinister role in the past? Moving on, I would like to point out some small details in Rick's memory room. We see vials of many shades of reds, greens, and blues, but what do we only see 2 of? We see 2 small yellow vials. Now you might wonder why these would be of any importance. Near the end of the episode, Summer comes to restore the memories of Rick and Morty, restoring their memories in their entirety. The instruction card Summer reads from tells her to use a special blue one for Rick and a yellow one for Morty. We see so few of these yellow vials that I wonder if these are important. With one yellow vial restoring what seems to be the entirety of Morty's memories, what could these other 2 yellow vials hold? With these 2 episodes coming on the heels of the return of Evil Morty, they begin to feel a little more important to the overall story. These observations certainly say nothing conclusive about Evil Morty, but I would like to suggest that after Evil Morty and Rick split apart, Rick created a clone to replace him, minus the damning memories that he stowed away in the yellow vials. And for the season finale, Rick brought the gun to kill Morty, not Jerry, to prevent a rogue Morty with a portal gun, or another evil Morty. Morty didn't want the selfie that Rick tried so hard to get, and he stole Rick's portal gun. We're just going to focus on the portal gun aspect because the selfie doesn't really matter. If Rick had any sort of connection with Evil Morty probably stole Rick's portal gun at one time. I would guess maybe before the start of the series. That's why in Season 1, Episode 10, he was framed by Evil Morty. Because Evil Morty knew Rick's portal gun number to hack and frame him. Rick didn't want another Evil Morty level situation and found out post the events of the pre-series that the cabin is where Evil Morty hid the first time, the same place that all Mortys would go. Rick has no reason to kill Blade Runner, Beth, or Jerry. He could always go to a different dimension or replace them all with clones. It's a Morty with a portal gun that he's worried about. Once Rick gets there and sees the family is fine, he deems the entire situation as normal and doesn't suspect a rogue Morty with a portal gun situation. So he just shifts his anger towards Jerry, who becomes a scapegoat. There is literally nothing that happens in the interaction that could shift Rick's mind from "I'm going to kill Jerry" to "I guess I'll let him live." Was it Beth? He could always mind-blower her and the whole family, replace the Jerry with a clone that hasn't reconciled with Beth, and move on with his life. I would assume he's fine with the situation as presented because it's not an Evil Morty event, and he would have time to get rid of a Jerry later. I don't know, maybe I'm not just getting the pieces to fit properly, but I seriously think the gun was to kill Morty for taking his portal gun and not Jerry. Good news, everyone! At the end of this video, I have a couple of short but sweet announcements. The Whirly-Durly Conspiracy is a different Rick and Morty, and it's going to play a huge role later. I believe that in this episode, we don't see the Rick and Morty that we are normally following, but instead another, where there are some major differences. The first thing about this that seems different in this one, Morty seems to have way more of a temper. He seems to suddenly explode at Beth very easily, in a way that we haven't really seen him act before. Sure, he has gotten angry on multiple occasions, but this time just felt much stranger. He almost seems to straight up hate Rick in this, with lines like,
"I tricked Rick into taking Dad on an adventure because I thought I could get a break from this kind of shit. But no, like father, like damn daughter. You want to be like Rick? Congratulations. You're just as arrogant and just as irresponsible."
At least in the previous episodes, Morty had some respect for his grandpa, and Morty tricking Rick, the smartest person in the universe. Rick can read through anyone's lies, so since when does this happen? Notice Morty's actions and behavior in this one too, specifically that scene with Ethan. Since when was he so menacing? He didn't stutter either like we would normally see with Morty. He didn't feel like our Morty. And the way that he crushed Beth's phone.
I think we got disconnected. Morty!
Don't Morty me!
Doesn't that seem familiar? And this episode also introduced a very interesting aspect we had not seen before. Rick's cybernetic implants, which cover his limbs, organs, brain, and eye. Hey, doesn't that sound familiar? Yep, I'm doing it. I'm suggesting that this episode is, in fact, an origin story of another well-known Rick and Morty duo. Evil Rick and Evil Morty. It all makes sense. Morty tricking Rick, that was either one of two things. Morty puppeteering Rick with the cybernetic implants, or Morty did genuinely trick Rick because we see that Evil Morty is far more intelligent than the other versions. Now you may be asking how this works, or if this takes place after the original Evil Morty episode. Well, this is probably the weakest part of the theory for me. And this is just a guess, but I'd say maybe time travel or something similar. Rick does have a box of time travel stuff in the garage. I know that they said they wouldn't do it, but I look at it, they wouldn't do it as a full episode. Couldn't it still be incorporated in as a short or off-screen thing? It's just an idea. Thanks so much KaijuMan257 from Reddit for this theory. One of the many things that struck me in this episode was the parallel in Evil Morty's final speech between his words and the things that were transpiring in the Citadel. I feel like they were mirroring and reinforcing one another, and as such, they should explain Evil Morty's reasonings, motivations, and goals. For this reason, I want to quote Evil Morty's words, describe what was transpiring in the show, and then interpret them as how they can relate to his future plans. At the end, I will share my own theory about Evil Morty's origins.
This seems like a good time for a drink and a cold, calculated speech with sinister overtones. A speech about politics, about order, brotherhood, power. But speeches are for campaigning. Now is the time for action.
A speech about politics. New Citadel flags fall over some balconies for the common people to see. About order. Newbie policeman Rick puts on his uniform again after violating many police codes and norms. Brotherhood. The group of young Mortys takes mega seeds from a Rick farmer with the full support of a group of Rick's soldiers despite the farmer's opposition. Power. Rick's soldiers are seen dumping the corpses of the Rick politicians that opposed Evil Morty.
Speeches are for campaigning. Now is the time for action.
My interpretation: politics, order, brotherhood, and power. These are the most important themes to Evil Morty, as they were the subjects he touched upon during his inaugural speech. All of them are of prime importance to him, since they are where his mind and attention is focused. A speech about politics. This is pretty straightforward. This is a power move from Evil Morty, so that common Ricks and Mortys accept his new leadership. It has some tyrannical connotations, since Evil Morty is pushing new symbology into a whole society to cement, and as evidence of his power and influence over them. Order. This was a curious one. Why would Evil Morty care about a common police officer? Bear in mind that Evil Morty is the sole leader of the Citadel, and it can be assumed that every change to the Citadel's customs comes directly from him. I think this means that the new order in the Citadel will accept transgressions from their workforce whenever it works in their interest. We might see some deviations from the law in Rick's workforce. Take into account that in modern societies, the law comes from a third party, like the Congress or the previous Rick's Council, independent to the executive power, President Morty. But now it's pretty much evident that Evil Morty wants to pursue and exert power by himself with complete disregard of others. So Evil Morty is the law now, and everyone who opposes him is fighting the status quo itself. So the Rick's workforce will fight against anyone who opposes Dictator Morty by all means necessary, which was already shown by the unlawful executions Evil Morty had just carried out. Brotherhood. This is the most interesting to me, and the one that compelled to write this piece. Bear in mind that everything that is happening, A, B, C, and D, is happening presumably under the direct orders and instructions of Evil Morty. So does Evil Morty know about the existence of this particular group of friends among the dozens of single Mortys? Why is he so interested in nurturing friendly relationships among the common populace, and particularly among Mortys? Let's not forget that this is the same Morty that tortured hundreds of Mortys for no reason at all. 5 Mortys in a jumper cable would achieve the same result, said our regular Rick when he was appalled by the utter disregard someone would have to use Mortys like this. Let's also point out that Mega Seeds give super intelligence, and that Evil Morty is handing them to Rickless Mortys. I presume he is interested in building an army of super intelligent Mortys with no attachment to Ricks. And D. Power. Pretty straightforward too. His plan was to win the election in order to build more power. Taking over the Citadel was just a middle step into a much bigger scheme. Clearly Evil Morty doesn't want power just for the sake of it, but as a means to an end. We know his previous plan was, apparently, thwarted, so this is just another shot he is making to achieve an ultimate goal. Now there is also another beautiful parallel in the show that is linked to one of my previous points. The group of young Mortys makes the long trip to a wishing well, and one of them makes the ultimate sacrifice so that his friends and all the other Mortys have a better life. And just as he jumps into the well, Evil Morty consummates his power and ultimately makes his wishes come true. I don't think this is a coincidence. I don't think the show is built around the trope of good people that have endured so much will end up having their wishes come true, as if God, nature, karma, or a fairy tale will take pity of their misery and take them to heaven. This is not what Rick and Morty is about. I believe the Morty that jumped through the portal, the Morty that escaped the system, that gives nothing but oppression and misery to all Mortys, is the same Evil Morty that has now come back to make things right. Thank you everybody for watching. What you think about it, let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a like. If not, give it a dislike. A while back, my first really successful video, The Lich, was demonetized by Cartoon Network, and it spent 8 months in limbo. They said they were going to take me to court over it. I appealed, and it seemed to go nowhere. Well, finally a year after the video's release, it has finally been cleared. To celebrate, please go check out this classic, Adventure Time Explained The Lich. Also, thank you so much for 20,000 subscribers. It means the world.
Thanks for watching. Happily ever after gaming, man. Yeah, man.